off with a very simple little drawing here and a few trees. Just a few squiggly lines and some smaller ones so that everything's getting that much shorter as it goes further away. And a few bits there. And some grasses. I'm from Yorkshire, so it's grasses rather than grasses. And there's one side of the path. There's the path as it goes around. And a little hedge here, look, which is another squiggly line. It's all very technical. Which we shall end there. And a gate. A very, very simple outline drawing. And an entrance into that. And grasses underneath. Here we're going to have some even more distant trees. Lots of people say, what kind of pencil do you use? Because that's really important. This is a really well-known pencil manufacturer called IKEA. There. Here I'm going to have a couple of people. And people, that's just a little blob there, with a bigger blob there, and a couple of sticks underneath. Another person. Mr. and Mrs. out for a walk. Or Mr. and Mr. out for a walk. And now it's time for the sky wash. The colours I'm using, the normal 8 colours which I use, which I shall tell you about as I'm going along, but they're all Dale O'Rowney artist quality paints, the ones that I'm using today. I only use Dale O'Rowney products anyway, as most of you know. The brushes I'm going to be using, I've got 4 brushes in total, a 1.5 inch flat, a 3/4 inch flat, a number 8 round, and a number 4 rigger. And these are aquafine brushes. Strictly speaking, they're students' quality brushes, but they're really good brushes, and they'll take a lot of abuse, but hold a lot of water. So, for the sky wash, I'm using my 1.5 inch flat. As the experts always tell you, always keep your palette clean, like that. Before any paint, just loads of water from the top, going through the trees. Remember, when you're doing trees in full foliage, if you now start and paint around those trees, when you leave gaps in the foliage later on, you'll end up with big chunks of white paper showing through. Paint through the trees, that way you see the sky wash or the sky colour through the gaps in the foliage. Loads more water. I'm just going to use one colour for this guy, just one colour, which is ultramarine blue. Strictly speaking, French ultramarine blue. I just call it ultramarine blue. Plenty of that. Plenty of water into it. And from the top, coming all the way down. Down through the trees. And now squeeze out, wash out, squeeze out, mop up along the bottom there. Again, wash out, squeeze out, and take out a few clouds. Using the brush rather than kitchen roll. Remember, kitchen roll will suck the paint out all the way down to the paper, leaving you with a big hard blob with a sharp edge. Doing it this way, you've still got a bit of the underlying colour in there, far more natural. A softer approach to it. Keep washing the brush out and squeezing out. And again, wash out. Remember, a clean brush and a damp brush is more effective at taking out than a totally dry brush. Because I've got such a steep angle on my board here, as I'm sucking out, the water's coming back in to the tops. Just let that finish running for a second or two, and then reinstate the top of the clouds. If I wanted cloud shadow in these, as I'm taking out there, just drop a little bit back in there. And a little bit down here. Wash out again, squeeze out, mop up, and then just let the sky dry before I go into the distance. Now it's time for these trees in the far distance there. I'm changing to my number 8 round brush for this, and a little bit of yellow ochre mixed with Hooker's green. Hooker's green has got such a bad reputation, people hate it, and I don't know why, because it's one of the best colours in your box. You can mix it with every other colour you've got, and you've got loads and loads of different greens. Now, plenty of water into this, and all I'm doing is tap on. Getting into my pencil line, just dab on like so. Around my people, which is easy enough to do. Down here. And again. But you notice how much paint that brush will hold. These brushes are only £2.50 from the website. And they'll hold so much water. Now, whilst that's still wet, I'm going in with a little bit of blue. Again, ultramarine blue. And we'll have this to the right-hand side of some of those clumps. It's a bit strong at the minute. I shall smooth that out in a second. Because I'm going to have the light in this one coming from the left. That's why I'm putting this to the right-hand side. Now, clean that brush, wash out, squeeze out, and just tap on and soften the blue in to the green. Incidentally, this is all going to be filmed in real time, so there's no big bits missed out. It's all happening as you see it. A bit more down there. And again. Let that dry. Now, still with my number 8 round brush, but I've got just yellow ochre on here. I'm just going to put a little bit of that in there, so it looks like we've got a cornfield through that gate, behind the hedge. Like so. Just a little bit there. And now to the hedge itself. I want this hedge to come further forward from those trees behind it, so the green needs to be a little bit stronger. But before that, I want a little bit of yellow ochre just here and there. Still with the round brush. Bit of yellow ochre there, on the tops mainly. Again, just stippling on. Bit here and there, a couple of bits there. And this time, the green needs to be stronger. So it's Hooker's green again, but with burnt sienna into it. Hooker's green and burnt sienna. Bit more water into that. Again, whilst the yellow ochre is still wet, stipple on. Around the people. Stippling, leaving a little bit of yellow ochre showing, especially on the top line. there, down to where the grasses are going to come. And now I'm going to leave that side to dry whilst I come over to the big trees on this side. With these trees here, the big ones, the important ones, I'm going to start off with the ones furthest away and get gradually stronger as I'm coming nearer to us. I'm using my 3/4 inch wash brush for this, and I've got plenty of water into the paints, into the mixers to start off with. A bit of yellow ochre there. With the corner of the brush, look, I'm just dabbing on. Have a few bits of that here as well. A bit stronger. Now, hooker's green and burnt sienna, but various strengths of the same mix. To start off with, plenty of water into it. And then I should just add more paint as I come further forward. Bit there. Now a little bit more of both colours into that mix, making it stronger. Now, a little bit of blue, just ultramarine blue, the same blue as your sky. If you're putting blue into trees, grasses, shadow, whatever, make sure it's the same blue as your sky. A little bit on the base there, and a little bit over to that right hand side. Just leave that for a second. Again, a little bit more blue. Side of the brush, look, just tapping on. This is where red wine helps. The handshake's better. The old ones are the best. Now, wash out, squeeze out. With a bit of a damp brush, just tap on here and there. Softening the colours in a little bit. A little bit there. Just tapping. Move it out a little bit. Now, drag up. This is digital art. I amuse myself. Softening a little bit at the bottom. There. Now, to these closer ones, good and strong. And I've got a couple more colours going in here as well. Starting off again though with yellow ochre. And I'm splitting the brush a little bit. This is where I said these brushes will take a lot of abuse. Look, I've split that. Now, stippling on. I'm getting these colours on fairly quickly, so it's all still damp by the time I finished it. Again, hooker's green and burnt sienna. Good and strong and dark. A little bit more burnt sienna into the mix this time. A bit more green. Not too much water into that. There. And again, split the brush. Keep the brush split. Leaving bits of yellow ochre shine through here and there. Again, split the brush. And now you can see what I'm talking about. seeing sky colour through the gaps. If you don't have gaps when you've got trees in full foliage, you end up with something that looks a bit like a lollipop on a stick because it's too filled in. Leave the gaps. As I get towards the bottom, you don't really need that many gaps. So filling in a little bit more here. Now, a little bit of burnt sienna, just by itself. There. Split the brush again. And that little bit of reddy brown just helps to bring this even further forward. As well as adding a few more colours, a bit more interest. Again, back into blue. Ultramarine blue, of course. And a few touches down here. Lots of different brush strokes with the same brush. Keeping with just 4 brushes, of course. It's not because I'm tight-fisted. It actually teaches you brush control. You get so many effects from the same brush. And when you've got 4 brushes, the effects are endless. Now, to my rigger brush for once, number 4 rigger brush, flicky bouncy little brush, and I've got for this raw umber with a touch of ultramarine blue into it. Raw umber's the only brown I carry, so if you take your raw umber by itself, there you go, it's a nice brown. Put a touch of blue into that, and you've got a sepia. If I added a touch of burnt sienna to my sepia mix, that would give me Van Dyke brown. If I take raw umber and burnt sienna by themselves, I've got burnt umber. That's 4 different browns from one tube. Very useful brown. And all I'm doing now is just dragging upwards, dipping again, and create some tree trunks in that hole. With a rigger brush, if you wanted a broader stroke, just press on harder. Look, here we go, I'll do one here. Just press on harder so the brush spreads, gives you a wider stroke. As I come further up, lift off, and I get a narrower stroke. So one here as well. And if it's not too late, we'll have a little bit of digital art as well. I say if it's not too late because obviously that still needs to be wet enough to move when I scrape up. There we go. And that's some fairly big trees done very, very easily. Now whilst that lot's drying, I'm coming further forward in the painting. I'm starting off with the path here. Get some layers on here. And this is Charles Evans sand. The sand is such a useful colour. It's a good layering colour. Put this on and other colours on top, like I'm going to do here. It's a good lightener. If I put sand into every other colour I've got, I'll lighten it without using white because I hate Chinese white. Stonework, sand is good for stonework as well. It's good for painting beaches as well. It's called sand. Flesh tone. Flesh tone is really notoriously difficult to mix in watercolours. Sand, touch of light red, you've got flesh tone. Easy as that. Now I'm going to have a little bit of yellow ochre and raw umber mixed. Bit of that, plenty of water into it. And just lightly stroke over here and there, leaving bits of the sand showing through. Also, a touch of light red. Light red is not a red made lighter. So don't take your cadmium red and put plenty of water into it and think you've made light red. You haven't. You've made your red lighter. Light red is a colour called light red. It's actually more akin to burnt sienna, but it's slightly softer. Now, just a clean damp brush and merge those colours here and there. And that's the start of the path. Whilst this is still drying, I'm just going to paint the gate. Again, a little bit of raw umber with ultramarine blue into it. Bit there. What a lovely dark rich colour that one is. And with my rigger brush. A little bit more water into that. And what I'm doing, we'll have a few sticks. There's one, there's another one, there's another one, and another one there. And a few bits across. Here and there I've left a little bit of white paper showing through as well. Always good. It's that extra little bit of light. And down here. The gate. Very, very simple. Now into grasses. Starting off, and I'm using my 3/4 inch brush for this. Starting off with a little bit of yellow ochre. Plenty of water. And whack that on down there like so. A little bit across here. And down here. Up to the base of the hedge. Now, hooker's green and yellow ochre. A lighter green than in the trees, but a little bit darker than we used it at the start of the painting in the distant trees. There. A bit more. Better. Plenty of water into that. And whilst that yellow ochre is still wet, pop a bit of that in here as well. Now coming down to the path. And a little bit there. Flick up a little bit there. And now over to the other side with that. A bit here. Up to the base of the gateway. And just using the sharp of my brush, look, just to tap on. Leaving a little bit of yellow ochre here and there. And flick up. And again, filling. Again, flicking up. All with that same 3/4 inch flat brush. This is such a wonderful brush, 3/4 inch flat. And this one just holds so much water. Incidentally, I quite often use these same brushes for my acrylics. Very, very sturdy. Now, just let that dry for a second or two. Come in close and have a good old look here. Because I'm starting off with more or less black. Never use manufactured black. Wherever you put black, you're going to kill that area stone dead. Make your black instead. Ultramarine blue and burnt sienna will give me a lovely black. There's a couple of blobs there. And we'll have some down here. A couple of sticks there. A couple of sticks there. Now, a little bit of red. Good to have some red. And we'll have that coat in red. Incidentally, this is my number 8 round brush that I'm using. So it's not a particularly small brush, but because it's got such a nice point, you can do fine detail with them. Now, a little bit of, what shall we have? Blue, just blue. A ultramarine blue into that jumper there, coat, whatever. Left a little bit of light to the outer edge. Now, if I put a little bit of blue across the red bit there, he's got his hand on her bum. Cheeky devil. The final thing to finish off this whole painting is just shadow. And the shadow, again, it's just about the same blue as in your sky. Never change the blues. The shadow is ultramarine blue with a touch of alizarin crimson. So I've made a really awful purple. Like so. Now tone that back with burnt sienna. And what I'm looking for is a dark aubergine type colour. There. And I'll just show you this on the side of the tape. See how dark that is. But when you put the water in it, you've got that purple tint to it. Quite a warm colour. And all I'm doing, to start with, we'll have shadow from the people. And you see how that instantly ties them down to the ground. With a bit of shadow there. Now also we're going to have some shadow from these trees. So I'll just bring a little bit down here and across. And dapple it a little bit, leave a few gaps. Edge the side of the path there. A bit down here. Sharpen up that bit there. And a little bit there. Now a little bit more water into that mix. And bring it down here as well. And don't forget, in any picture, especially when you've got trees, you can have a tree out of shot over here. It's casting a shadow. Don't forget, you can make the picture suit you. And just a few little bits over here. And that will more or less do. And when I take the tape off, which I'm going to do now, that's when it makes all the difference. Finished picture. As I said, once you take the tape off, you get a nice white border all the way around, and it gives you the impression of it being framed or finished. I hope you enjoyed this one.